So Daniel Jones made his decision and is now with a contending playoff team, a team with a coach so good that honestly this might very well have saved his NFL career for reasons I'll get into in today's video. I also want to take a look at some of the most intriguing matchups for Week 13 of the NFL season, including the battle of the running backs and much more right after. Alright, first up, the recently released Daniel Jones has found a new home for the time being, and that is with the Minnesota Vikings. Jordan Schultz broke the news this morning and said that Jones ultimately chose to sign with the Vikings because he wanted to sign with a playoff contender that had a QB-friendly offense and a coaching staff known for developing players. Well, he certainly landed in the perfect place for that, as we've seen what Kevin O'Connell has done for Sam Darnold and his career. Jordan Schultz actually did say that KOC was a key factor in Jones's decision and that they had been in communication leading up to him signing, with KOC believing that Minnesota is the perfect place to rejuvenate his career. Now, obviously, he's not going to start over Sam Darnold. In fact, he won't even be the backup for at least a couple weeks or so. He's going to start out on the practice squad for now and get familiar with the system for a bit before he's activated to the 53. He can be elevated to the Vikings active roster for game days, but he can also be poached by another team if he agrees and can sign to that team's active roster. Now, there's a caveat to that. I would assume the Vikings would opt to protect him. You can protect up to 4 practice squad players a week and thus not allow him to be poached. So I'm assuming that's what happens, and he stays in Minnesota. And I look at this as a complete win-win for both sides. Daniel Jones gets to be in a non-pressure situation and learn from a great coaching staff, while the Vikings get a quality backup for Sam Darnold at a very affordable price. He'll make $16,800 for every week he's on the practice squad and another $62,500 per game he's elevated for. Meanwhile, the Giants are on the hook for over $11 million the rest of the season, so it's not like Daniel Jones isn't still getting paid. Another benefit to the Jones signing is that if he signs with another team this offseason, even as a backup, the Vikings will likely receive some sort of a comp pick for the 2025 NFL Draft. There's also a scenario, though unlikely at this time at least, that he stays in Minnesota beyond this season and accepts a role as a longer-term backup. Sam Darnold is set to become a free agent this offseason after all, and as of right now, J.J. McCarthy is the only quarterback under contract for next year, and he's coming off a torn meniscus and has yet to take a snap in the NFL. He's clearly their franchise guy moving forward, but let's say JJ's not 100% healthy by next year, or maybe he's not as far along in his development as they would have hoped. Maybe Daniel Jones could be the answer as the number 2 QB. After all, he's a guy that's obviously started plenty of games in the NFL and also has won a playoff game, ironically, against the Vikings. For now, this is a very low-risk, potentially high reward signing for the Vikings should something happen to Sam Darnold, and also a low risk, high reward situation for Daniel Jones if he's able to glean from the coaching staff and get his career back on track. But what do you guys think about this signing, Daniel Jones to the Vikings? Let me know either way in the comments. Next, let's get into some of the best matchups and storylines of Week 13. We have 3 games on the glorious day that is also known as Thanksgiving. The Lions and Bears kick things off for us with Detroit being 10-point favorites over the Bears, and the Bears have taken 5 straight losses and will be primed to take their 6th on Thursday. I'll be extremely surprised if the Lions lose this one. Then we have a little bit of a stinker here, and that's putting it mildly. The 4-7 Cowboys are hosting the 2-9 Giants, and if you choose to watch this entire game, that means you do not like your family. Just kidding. Relax. We all know we're going to have this game on as we fall into turkey comas. The only quote-unquote good game of the day is the nightcap, with the 8-3 Packers hosting the 5-6 Dolphins. Tua has been back from that concussion for 5 weeks now, and when he came back, the Dolphins were 2-4. In his first game, they lost to the Cardinals by 1. The following week, they lost to the Bills by 3. But now they've rattled off 3 straight wins and have given themselves a shot to make the playoffs. This game against Green Bay is pretty much a must-win game for them, though, as they're a game and a half behind the 7th place Broncos. The Packers' offense is dynamic. They're coming in ranked 8th in scoring and 5th in yards. However, the Dolphins' defense has been sneaky good this year. They're 11th in points allowed and 7th in yards. Miami is one of just 10 teams that have 4 or more players with at least 20 pressures this season, and that's big because Jordan Love has completed just 40.5% of his passes when under pressure this year, which is the third lowest rate in the league. He's also thrown 11 picks in just 9 games, so if Miami can generate pressure and force him into some mistakes, then I think they can find a way to win if they play a clean game on offense. Then heat up a plate of leftovers the next day and tune into the Chiefs and Raiders 2 p.m. on Black Friday. The Raiders shocked the Chiefs on Christmas last year, so this is a bit of a holiday revenge matchup, even though both teams just played each other in October and the Chiefs clearly won that game. This time, though, the Raiders will be without Gardner Minshew, who broke his collarbone last week and is out for the season, and that means we will most likely see Aidan O'Connell in at quarterback. He's been on IR with a broken thumb since Week 7, but was just designated to return on Monday. Next up, the Falcons are looking to bounce back after getting upset by the Saints, then blown out by the Broncos in their last 2 games. They're coming off their bye week, so hopefully they had some extra time to get things figured out because the Bucs are right on their ass in the NFC South. The Chargers will be on a short week as they just played on Monday night, so Atlanta should have an edge there. They're going to need all the help they can get as they're taking on the #1 scoring defense in football, and they failed to score a single touchdown in their last outing. The Chargers offense hasn't put up the most gaudy numbers this year, but the Falcons defense has been one of the worst in the league, ranking 25th in both points and yards allowed. And then, I feel like I say this every week, but if the Bengals lose this Sunday, then their season is officially over. It may already be too late, to be honest. They're 4-7 after all and are 10th in the AFC with a tough matchup against the Steelers coming up. Pittsburgh is looking to bounce back from that tough loss in the snow against Cleveland and are currently holding on to a narrow half-game lead over the Ravens in the AFC North and really can't afford any more slip-ups if they want to win the division. Speaking of the Ravens, they've got a banger of a matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. Philly has been on a tear recently, winning 7 straight games to give them the second best record in the NFC, only behind Detroit. This one is going to be the battle of the running backs as we get to see the NFL's leading rusher in Saquon Barkley go up against Derrick Henry, who's right behind him in yards, though he has played one more game than Saquon for what that is worth. Henry is coming off a 140-yard performance in Baltimore's win over the Chargers, while Saquon is coming off that insane showing on Sunday night in which he rushed for over 250 yards and set an Eagles franchise record. It's going to come down to who can stop the run more consistently. The Eagles are giving up the 7th fewest rushing yards per game, but Baltimore is allowing just under 78 rushing yards per game, which is the 2nd fewest. Then the Vikings are coming off 4 straight wins and are looking to make it 5 against the Arizona Cardinals, who just had their 4-game win streak ended by the Seahawks last week. Minnesota's coming in with top 10 units on both sides of the ball, while the Cardinals are middle of the pack on both offense and defense. The strength of Arizona's offense has been their efficiency when running the ball. They're 3rd in yards per carry and 6th in rushing yards per game. However, that just so happens to be the strength of the Vikings defense. They're allowing just under 75 rushing yards per game, which is the best mark in the league. Both these teams are 2nd in their division and have a legit shot at winning them, but this game is going to go a long way towards that. And speaking of the Cardinals division, the 49ers are currently, surprisingly, the bottom dwellers. I mean, they've been ravaged with injuries, but heading into this season, I don't know who would have predicted the 49ers to be last. Anyway, they are the bottom dwellers after losing to the Packers last week and falling to 5-6. Brock Purdy's once again questionable for their Sunday night game against the Bills as he deals with this shoulder issue. And if he can't go, it's going to be Brandon Allen up again, who had a rough go last week against Green Bay. Buffalo is fresh off a bye and are probably feeling themselves after handing the Chiefs their first loss of the season a couple weeks ago. They've got the AFC East locked up, but are just a half game behind KC for the 1 seed in the AFC, so you know they're going to be motivated. If Purdy doesn't suit up for this one, I honestly have no idea how the 49ers do not get blown out yet again, but we'll have to wait until later in the week to get more clarity on his status for the game. You guys got to let me know in the comments your most exciting matchup for this weekend and what you think could be potential upsets, and with that, I'll see y'all next time.